Raised by Demons, a true and accurate autobiography. Well, sorta. Part 10. Sure enough, Henry had left the roll-up door open, but no one passing by downtown had noticed, luckily. At least Texaco security was not waiting on him. Then again, what would a thief want in the warehouse anyway, unless they were drilling an oil well on the exact location at the exact depth? And even if that was true, how many stone cores could they carry off? 3? Maybe 4? Mr. America might carry 6 or 8, but how far could he get? Nonetheless, if Texaco security did happen to show up, he could say he'd been in back dusting shells and forgot the time. Lame, it's true, but they'd probably think he was gung-ho. Henry spent the evening drinking beer and fast-drawing his .22 caliber Colt Western 6-shooter. Unfortunately, the longer he practiced, the worse he got. If he only had his tie-down holster he'd ordered out of the Sears and Roebuck mail-order catalog. 3 weeks and still no package. Having to draw from his pocket was a hindrance. The gun sight would snag on the fabric and pull the gun from his hand, or else the pocket material wasn't strong enough to support the gun's weight and hung so low he missed the handle now and then. His left hand pocket didn't work either, as he had to reach across his body. Once, while standing in the middle of the warehouse, the pocket material tangled up the barrel and the weapon hit the cement floor and fired as a huge overhead light bulb exploded, sending shards sprinkling all over him. Instead of deterring him, the incident gave him an idea. There'd be a mess to clean up in the morning, but so what? There were boxes of oversized light bulbs in the storeroom and a ladder tall enough to change them out. That'd give him something to do, replacing light bulbs and sweeping up the glass. More fun tonight and keep busy tomorrow. 2 birds with 1 stone, as they say. However, actually hitting one of the overhead warehouse lights, fast drawing, was an altogether different story. He did good to ring the metal shield enclosing the lights. When his frustration got the better of him and he forgot fast drawing and took aim, even at that, he seldom rang a bell, much less popped a bulb. But just when he was ready to quit, a poof and resulting tinkling shower of glass made spending the ammunition worthwhile. Another beer to celebrate. 3/4 of the way through his last box of shells, not to say however many 6-packs, he had another inspiration. The warehouse became an obstacle course, like the Texas Rangers used to improve their skills. Shooting from behind barricades, hostage situations, firing on the run, and so on. Hitting a light bulb was 10 points, a ding of a shield was 5, but he lost track of the score. Once he hit one of the core sample rocks, ricocheting off and breaking out his office window. After he quit the obstacle course, not so much because of the ricochet, but he was having trouble focusing, and the targets blurred or separated and came together again, making aiming all but impossible. He was also having trouble keeping his hands from wandering, and there was no telling where the barrel might point. Lights are lights, Croker snorted at his partner, but within Henry's earshot. Meaningless, face to face, now that's the test. Croker had been sent back early from the netherworld with a message so urgent he hadn't been allowed to report to Sublord Chance Medley. After a rumor spread by imps to higher-ups, as there were always Dragoon wannabes looking to improve their position, that Snuffer had influenced their target directly in regards to the Tylenol episode, violating the edict from on high. One more transgression like that, and both he and Croker would be sent to the abyss. "Ah, you shouldn't be critical of him," Snuffer whimpered. "He could do better if he applied himself, don't you think?" Once he'd been informed of his transgression, Snuffer, having once been such an experienced attorney, thought of a way to skirt the provisions of the edict from on high. The two would talk about Henry, not directly to him. If he overheard them, how was that their lookout? Could they help his being an eavesdropper? Ack! He couldn't hit a villain if he hit bad guy held a barrel between his eyes, Croaker surmised. Oh, now, Snuffer countered. He could so, after he calmed down a bit. I'm almost certain of that. If he faced a real live assailant, that is. Bosh! You're hopeless stuff. He'd wilt faster than a stomped petunia. Henry stopped and looked around. Seeing no one, he walked past the aisles one by one, brushing aside against one shelf and stumbling sideways, until he had searched the warehouse. "Hello?" he called. "You in there?" No one answered, so he went back to the cooler in his office. After sweeping aside some broken glass off his desk, he swished around in that watery ice. Where had all the cans gone? Had some thief crept in behind his back? He thought about going outside and looking around, but decided it was too much trouble. Defenseless light bulbs. Big deal, Croaker sneered. I'd like to see what he's made of against real live competition. He'd turn out a bowl of pudding, I bet. I don't think so, Snuffer answered, but a quiver in his voice sounded uncertain. He might not be what's called a man's man, but he's not a pudding either. He wouldn't fold when faced with stiff odds. I'm pretty sure of that. Bah! You and your hyper-optimism. Once gutless, always gutless. Henry stopped, midway lifting the beer bottle to his lips. Who's here? He asked out loud. He recognized Croaker and Snuffer's voices, but he had never heard them so distinct. Someone here? Shooting targets is for wimps, Croaker observed. Nothing's proven at all. Woo, big deal. He hit a light bulb. Run for cover. Pshaw. There's no need to act that way, Snuffer admonished him. He'll prove his worth. Don't worry. To beat a sure enough gunslinger with notches on his pistol grip would be something to brag about and prove for all time he was a man's man. But there's no need to rush. It will happen. Lucky for quivering knees over there, you're so patient, but I'm not. Henry set his beer down on the desk and swiveled his chair in a full circle. No one. He went to the office door and peered outside. Say, who's there? He slurred. Show yourself. Say something. Despite getting no answer, he couldn't disagree with the observation that had been made about gunslingers, but those days were long gone. It's not like he was back in the old West. The downtown streets had all been paved. No one wore guns on their hips anymore. Hitching posts had long since been replaced by parking meters, and saloons turned into cocktail lounges. Towns like Tombstone, Yuma, and Dodge City had become artsy centers like Sedona or Santa Fe, and any poor sap caught wearing a tie-down holster and sidearm would be arrested. And heaven forbid if someone got shot. No, gunfighters of yesteryears were extinct. Did he say extinct? Really? Snuffer questioned, somehow intuiting Henry's thoughts. You think so? On maybe TV, Croaker shrugged, or the movies. Otherwise, it's all wishful thinking. What if not? Snuffer wondered in a dreamy sigh. What if those days were still around? What if Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday faced Billy Claiborne and that group of cusses at the OK Corral? Henry would join right in and help those outnumbered guys out, I bet. Har, har, Croaker barked in a mocking laugh. That'd be the day. Oh, you're being unfair. Henry wouldn't forsake Wyatt and Doc. He'd join in those two and help out no matter the odds. I'm almost positive of that. Yeah, Henry agreed, as if he was the one being talked to. Entering the office, he tripped and sprawled atop the desk, scattering several small items on the floor and cutting his forearm on broken glass. He used his handkerchief to stop the spurting blood, wrapping a piece of loose twine around for a makeshift bandage. Surprisingly, there'd been no pain. Not a chance, Croaker responded to his partner's imagined assertion about the OK Corral. He'd stay as far away from Wyatt and Doc as he could get. Now you're being unkind, Snuffer whined. There's no need to be mean. Not mean, just factual. Look how he backed down from that meanest of all bad guys, Jack Wilson, and caught on fire. Up against someone like that again, he'd be dead before he unholstered his sidearm. No, you're quite mistaken, I think, Snuffer defended him, although with a hint of uncertainty. Get real, fool, Croaker scoffed. If Jack Wilson stood in front of that dartboard over there, he couldn't hit him in 6 shots. Taking what he heard as a personal challenge, Henry stumbled out of his swivel chair and assumed a stance, which wasn't easy, as he kept swaying. Finally steadying himself by leaning against the edge of the office desk, he held his hands out from his hip briefly, then drew and fired his .22 Colt Western revolver until the hammer clicked. 2 ceiling tiles had been knocked askew, the wall paneling was split, plus a couple of vases on the shelf were broken, scattering fake flowers. One bullet went who knows where. Bullseye, Snuffer proclaimed. Dead center in the red dot. I told you he could do it. Bah, Croaker spat. That hole was from when he first started. He hit everywhere but the target. What a joke. That's unfair. I'm almost sure he hit dead center with his first shot. Don't give me that. The vase broke on his first shot. I think you're mistaken. Maybe he'll try again. Henry would have, but he was out of ammo except for one last bullet, which he loaded in the pistol cylinder after emptying the spent casings. He rolled the cylinder so that the live round would fire next. Gunfighter. You gotta be kidding me, Kroger said with a disgusted snort. At your OK Corral fantasy, all he'd amount to is one of those saloon barflies. Come now, no need being ugly, Snuffer cautioned. He'd do better than you think. Up against a live challenger like, say, Eli Wallach in Magnificent Seven, it'd be a different story altogether. Croaker snickered in that hyena cackle of his. He'd run for the hills. Despite a spinning sensation, Henry had worried about that very possibility ever since a kid watching his first Western. Would he have the nerve to stand fast and face a fast draw or knuckle under like everyone else? Everyone, that is, except the hero. But there was no longer a way to find out. That was yesteryear stuff. Today's times were more civilized. Civilized, Croaker mulled, as if privy to his thoughts, or cowardly. There you go again, Snuffer intervened. Now don't start picking on the poor fellow. Who's picking on anyone? Croaker returned. I'm just observing that in the Old West, men were men. But in these modern times, it's all about lawyers and lawsuits in the hope some judge will stick up for the weaklings. But at one time, things got settled in the street man to man. After shaking his head to clear his thinking, which didn't help, Henry could not very well debate what he just heard. In olden times, men proved their mettle, but he'd been born too late. Had his birthday been 100 years earlier, and had he been raised in wide-open Yuma or Tombstone, rather than his tame upbringing, things might have been different. But that was past history, so why bother with idle fantasies? Did I hear idle fantasies, boss? Snuffer asked his partner, somehow intuiting Henry's thinking, as he hadn't spoken out loud. Do you think that's the correct term? Pshaw, Croaker snorted. Who knows or who cares? But isn't an idle fantasy, Snuffer persisted, that all the books and movies are made about Billy the Kid, not Pat Garrett, who gunned him down in the dark? Which one of those two are famous? Not Pat Garrett, I'd say. Whoop-de-doo. So what? I'm just trying to explain. Is it idle fantasies they've made umpteen documentaries about Jesse James and none about Bob Ford, who shot him while hanging a picture on the wall? Lousy back-shooter, Croaker spat. Only those with daring and who don't play it safe are admired these days, Snuffer went on. They're the real champions. While swishing around in the cooler's icy water until finding a last beer, Henry had to concede the point of what he overheard. No one cares for timid souls, only those who break with convention and do something outlandish. Meanwhile, unable to find an opener, Henry broke the bottleneck on the edge of the metal desk as foam went everywhere. Taking a swallow, part of which ran down his shirt front, he held the bottle away from his mouth so as not to cut his lip, while contemplating whatever reputation he'd leave behind. Who would remember a warehouseman 2 seconds after he was gone? No one. In order to make a reputation, boss, Snuffer offered as if able to read minds, it takes the courage to face insurmountable odds and the moxie to do what most consider impossible, right? And no one around here has that. Maybe not, maybe so. But to be renowned all over the state of Texas and written about in history books would be worth risking it all. That's a long way from idle fantasies. I call it superstar dreaming. Despite Henry's difficulty concentrating, he had to concede the truth of what he just overheard. At the same time, there were no more quick-drawing gunslingers. The days of walking into a saloon and finding pistoleros with one foot on a brass rail, an elbow in the bar, throwing down whiskey shots, and giving the evil eye to any who dared look their way, well, they were gone. No one wears a tie-down holster and .45 on their hip, much less knows how to fan a hammer. Oh, but what if there were, Snuffer commented to his partner. Were what? Croaker asked. Gunslingers. But the styles have changed. No longer do they tuck their jeans in the tops of their boots or wear tie-down holsters, but they carry guns still, big ones, and don't kid yourself, they're fast on the draw. Even though his thoughts swirled around inside his head like an egg beater, Henry found that last statement hard to believe. He'd never seen a gunslinger other than on TV or at the movies. How absurd! Absurd? Snuffer asked his partner, once again having an ear inside of Henry's head. Oh, I don't think so, boss. They no longer act so disrespectful to strangers, but just you try and cross one. Why, he'll shoot you down faster than a rattling copperhead. Top-of-the-line gunfighters is what they are. If it's a reputation a fellow wants to make, they're the way. But watch out, as there are no redos. Shaking his head against double vision and fighting off dizziness, or trying to, Henry leaned too far back in his swivel chair, but avoided a complete tip-over by kicking one leg out, which caught underneath the desk. He could make no sense out of anything. Gunslingers? Quick on the draw pistoleros? All dressed alike? Who could make sense of... unless... Of course! Why hadn't he thought of it before? Nothing could be more sensible. But the question was, had he the nerve enough? To be continued. For a continuation of Raised by Demons, plus books, plus free short stories, plus videos, go to thereisageneration.com. All one word, thereisageneration.com.